I knew something was wrong when Mom texted me to come to their house at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. The Caldwells didn't do impromptu family meetings. Not since Michael got out of rehabilitation last spring. Their polite euphemism for his third stint in county jail. "It's important, sweetie," she wrote. "Your brother needs all of us right now." Of course he did. He always needed something. What he never needed was to actually change. I pulled into their driveway in Franklin Lakes, noticing Michael's beat-up Camry parked crooked across 2 spaces. Some things never changed. The house looked exactly as it had during my childhood. Pristine colonial, perfect lawn, careful appearance masking complicated truths. Dad opened the door before I could knock. "Amanda, you made it." His smile was too bright, too rehearsed. I'd seen that smile before. At Michael's first bail hearing, at family therapy sessions, at countless Fresh Start dinners. The living room was arranged like a business meeting. Files spread across the coffee table. Mom perched nervously on the edge of the sofa. Michael slouched in Dad's leather recliner like he owned it. At 35, my brother still dressed like the college sophomore he'd been when he first got arrested. Worn jeans, untucked shirt, that careful casualness that cost more than it looked. "Mandy," he stood, arms wide for a hug I didn't return. "Thanks for coming, sis. This means a lot." I set my briefcase by the chair furthest from him. "What's this about?" "Sit down first." Mom patted the sofa beside her. "Can I get you some tea?" "I'd prefer we get to the point." Michael cleared his throat, shuffling some papers. "Right. Well, I've got this amazing opportunity. Tech startup, ground floor investment. The potential returns are incredible. Of course, it was always an amazing opportunity with Michael. Amazing opportunities had cost our family nearly $200,000 over the years, not counting legal fees. "I just need some backing to secure my position," he continued. "Some collateral for the initial investment." Mom jumped in, voice bright with forced optimism. "We've already committed our savings, but it's not quite enough. The investors want more security." "How much?" I kept my voice neutral. "Just a small stake." Michael spread his hands. "Your house as collateral. Totally safe. Just a formality, really." My house. The one I'd bought myself after 12 years at Morgan Stanley, working 60-hour weeks while Michael bounced between business ventures and court dates. "Your brother needs our support," Mom insisted. "Family helps family." I reached for my briefcase, feeling the weight of the files inside. Files I'd compiled over the last 3 months, ever since I'd gotten a call from an old college friend, now working at the state attorney's office. "Before we discuss collateral," I said carefully, "maybe we should discuss mortgage securities." Michael's casual smile flickered. "What about it?" I pulled out the first file, manila folder stamped with the New Jersey Department of Corrections logo. "Your last tech startup. The one that earned you 18 months for wire fraud in 2019. "That was a misunderstanding," he started, but I was already opening the second file. "Or Vantage Point Investments in 2021. Another ground floor opportunity that somehow ended with 6 investors pressing charges." Mom stood up, hands fluttering. "Amanda, stop. That's all in the past. Your brother's changed." "Has he?" I placed the third file on the table, because according to his parole officer's report from last month, he's been meeting with Tony Rizzi. The same Tony Rizzi who ran the pyramid scheme that got Michael arrested the first time. The room went silent. Michael's casual pose had vanished, replaced by something harder, colder. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, staring instead at the prison letterhead atop the files. How did you get those? Michael's voice was low, dangerous. I have friends in interesting places. I kept my tone even. Friends who notice when convicted fraudsters start incorporating new companies 3 months before their parole ends. Mom's face had gone pale. What are you saying? I'm saying your amazing opportunity is another scam. I turned to Michael. And this time, you wanted my house as collateral because you've already burned through Mom and Dad's savings, haven't you? His mask slipped completely then, showing the rage underneath. You self-righteous bitch. Always thinking you're better than me? I don't think I'm better. I cut him off. I just think you're exactly what these files say you are. A convicted felon about to violate parole by running another investment fraud. Dad finally spoke, his voice tired. Michael, is this true? But Michael was already heading for the door, car keys in hand. Mom called after him, that same pleading tone she'd used at every court appearance. Don't bother, I told her. He'll be getting another ride soon anyway. What do you mean? She whispered. I pulled out my phone, showing them the text I'd received just before arriving. Surveillance in position. Waiting for your signal. Remember those friends in interesting places? I stood up, gathering the files. They've been watching him since he met with Rizzy. They just needed proof he was attempting another fraud. What have you done? Mom collapsed onto the sofa. What you should have done years ago, I replied, heading for the door. I chose truth over enabling. And in about 10 minutes, the FBI is going to do the same. Outside, I heard sirens in the distance growing closer. Sometimes family loyalty meant making the hard choices, even when those choices came with flashing lights and Miranda rights. The FBI took Michael into custody at the end of our street. I watched from my car as they intercepted his Camry. Lights flashing against pristine suburban hedges. The neighbors would have something new to whisper about at the country club this weekend. Special Agent Diana Miller approached my window. Good call on the house meeting. Got him attempting fraud on tape. I handed her my briefcase. There's more. Financial records, emails, everything linking him to Rizzy, plus documentation of what happened to my parents' savings. She nodded grimly. How much did they lose this time? According to their bank statements, I pulled out my phone, showing her the screenshots. $287,000. Their entire retirement fund, plus a second mortgage they didn't tell me about. Jesus. Diana shook her head. And he still wanted your house? Rizzy's operation needed clean collateral. My house was perfect. Paid off. Worth $1.2 million in today's market. They would have stripped the equity and disappeared. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. I declined it. You should go, Diana said softly. We'll need official statements tomorrow, but for now... Yeah, I started my engine. For now, I need a drink. At home, I poured myself 2 fingers of Macallan and opened my laptop. The evidence folder I'd compiled over 3 months filled the screen. Hundreds of files, each one a careful documentation of Michael's latest scheme. It had started with a phone call from Jack Thompson, my old college roommate, now working cyber crimes at the state attorney's office. Amanda, he'd said, your brother's name just popped up in a surveillance report. He's meeting with Tony Rizzy. Rizzy. The man who'd introduced Michael to investment fraud 15 years ago. The same man who disappeared with $4 million in investor funds while Michael took the fall. I had started digging immediately. Michael's new company, TechVantage Solutions, looked legitimate on paper. Sleek website, professional pitch deck, impressive board of advisors. But when I ran background checks, the advisors didn't exist. The office address led to an abandoned strip mall in Paramus. Classic Michael. All shine, no substance. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time. Please call us. We need to understand. I took another sip of scotch, remembering the last time they'd needed to understand. Michael's second arrest, 2017. He'd convinced them to refinance their house for a can't-miss cryptocurrency opportunity. 3 months later, the money was gone and federal agents were at their door. I tried to warn them then, show them the red flags, the inconsistencies. Mom had called me jealous. Dad said I was trying to hold Michael back. So this time, I'd done it differently. No warnings, no arguments, just careful documentation and strategic timing. My laptop pinged with an email from Diana. Rizzy in custody. Found at Newark Airport with fake passport. Your brother talking already, trying to cut a deal. Typical. Of course he was. Michael never could handle consequences. Another text from Mom. How could you do this to your own brother? I opened my files again, pulling up the victim statements from Michael's last fraud. Regular people who trusted him with their savings. A retired teacher who lost her pension. A widower who borrowed against his life insurance. The same stories, different names. And this time, he'd added our parents to the list. My doorbell rang. 10:47 p.m. I already knew who it was. Mom stood on my porch, mascara streaked down her face. Dad behind her, looking older than his 62 years. You need to fix this, Mom started immediately. Call someone. Tell them it was a mistake. Come in. I cut her off. There's something you need to see. I led them to my home office, where a second laptop was already set up. On the screen, a video played, Michael meeting Rizzy at a diner in Secaucus. Their conversation, captured by FBI surveillance, was crystal clear. Parents tapped out? Rizzy asked. Almost, Michael replied. But my sister's got this house, totally clear. Once we get that as collateral, we can pull at least $1 million in equity. She'll sign it over? Michael laughed. She always helps family. It's her weakness. I stopped the video. Mom had sunk into my office chair, Dad gripping its back for support. There's more, I said quietly. Want to see what he did with your retirement money? Dad shook his head, but I continued anyway. Private jet rentals, gambling in Atlantic City, wire transfers to offshore accounts. He burned through nearly $300,000 in 8 weeks. We thought. Mom's voice cracked. He said it was for the business. It was. I agreed. His business of stealing from people who trust him. I pulled up their bank statements, showing the systematic draining of their accounts. Each withdrawal labeled as a business investment. He's your brother, Mom whispered. Yes, I replied. And he's also a con man who was about to steal my house and disappear with Rizzy. The same Rizzy who taught him how to run investment scams 15 years ago. Dad finally spoke. What happens now? Now, I closed the laptops. Now Michael goes back to prison, but this time for federal fraud charges. And you? I pulled out a business card. You call this attorney. She specializes in financial recovery for fraud victims, even from family members. We can't afford. I'm paying. I cut Mom off. Considered the last time I helped family without checking the facts first. They left shortly after, clutching the attorney's card like a lifeline. As I watched them drive away, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from Diana. Rizzy flipped. trading information for a deal. Your brother's looking at 8 to 10 years minimum. I poured another scotch and smiled. Sometimes family loyalty meant protecting people from themselves, even if they never thanked you for it. The next morning, my parents' faces were splashed across the local news alongside Michael's mugshot. Prominent Franklin Lakes family implicated in multi-million-dollar investment fraud. The story painted them as victims, which they were, but it still hurt to see their shame made public. I met Diana at the FBI field office in Newark. The interview room was cold, institutional, fitting for what came next. Michael's been talking all night, she said, sliding a thick transcript across the table. Trying to minimize his role, of course. Claims Rizzy masterminded everything. I scanned the pages. Let me guess. He portrays himself as an unwitting participant? Actually, Diana's smile was grim. He's trying to implicate you. That made me look up. Excuse me. She played an audio clip from Michael's interrogation. My sister knew everything. She works in finance. She helped structure the deals. I was just the face man. She's the one with the expertise. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Typical Michael. Even now, he can't take responsibility. We know he's lying, Diana assured me. Your documentation proves you were investigating him, not helping him. But he's convinced your parents to back his story. The words hit like a physical blow. I pulled out my phone, opening the voicemail Mom had left at 3 a.m. Amanda, please. If you just explain that you were involved, they might go easier on Michael. He says you understood the investment structure, that you advised him. Please, honey. Help your brother one last time. Diana watched my reaction carefully. They visited him this morning. He's persuaded them that if you share culpability, he might avoid serious time. And they believed him. It wasn't a question. They want to believe him, she corrected. It's easier than accepting the truth. I opened my briefcase, removing a final file I hadn't shown them yesterday. Then maybe this will help them accept reality. Inside were emails spanning the past 5 years. Michael writing to known fraudsters while in prison, planning his next scam before he even finished his last sentence, discussing which family members to target first. One email from 6 months ago stood out. Amanda's the perfect mark. She's got the house free and clear, good credit, clean reputation. By the time she realizes what happened, we'll be gone. Mom and Dad are tapped out, but they're useful. They'll convince her to help family. That's her weakness. Diana, read it slowly. When did you get these? Jack Thompson recovered them from Rizzy's seized laptop last week. I was waiting to see if Michael would actually try to use me as collateral before turning them over. And now, I stood up, straightening my suit jacket. Now I'm done protecting anyone's illusions. Set up a meeting. I want to show these to my parents myself. 2 hours later, I sat across from them in a different interview room. They looked exhausted, broken. Mom still wore yesterday's clothes. Before you ask me to lie for Michael again, I said quietly, read these. I watched their faces as they read the emails, watched Mom's hands shake as she saw how Michael really talked about her when she wasn't around, watched Dad's jaw tighten as he read his son's cold calculations about exploiting family trust. Mom couldn't finish. He was using you. I completed the thought. Using all of us. He's been planning this since before his last release. But he said, Dad trailed off, staring at the emails. He said you were involved. The only thing I was involved in was stopping him. I pulled out the surveillance photos, every meeting with Rizzy, every fraudulent document, every attempt to steal more money from innocent people. I tracked it all. Why didn't you tell us? Mom whispered. Would you have believed me? I met her eyes. You never did before. The silence that followed was heavy with 2 decades of enabling, of chosen blindness, of family loyalty that only ever went one way. What do we do now? Dad asked finally. Now you tell the FBI the truth. About the money he took, the lies he told, everything. I stood up. And then you let him face the consequences. All of them. He's still our son, Mom protested weakly. Yes, I agreed. But I'm your daughter, and I'm done watching you destroy yourselves to protect him. I left them there, with Diana and the evidence of their son's true nature spread across the table. In the hallway, Jack Thompson was waiting. They'll do the right thing, he said, falling into step beside me. The emails make it impossible to deny anymore. Maybe. I wasn't so sure. But at least I won't have to watch them try to sacrifice me to save him again. You know, Jack said carefully, most people would have just refused to help. You didn't have to spend months building a federal case. I thought about all the lives Michael had ruined, all the trust he'd broken, all the times our parents had chosen his lies over hard truths. Yes, I said finally. I did. Because sometimes protecting family means protecting them from themselves. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. Parents giving full statement. Your brother just lost his last defense. I smiled, thinking about Michael's words. Family help is her weakness. He was wrong. Truth was my strength. And finally, our parents were learning the difference. Michael's sentencing was scheduled for a crisp October morning. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching my brother in his orange jumpsuit, a far cry from the casual designer clothes he'd worn to our last family meeting. The evidence had been overwhelming. Between my documentation, Rizzy's testimony, and our parents' eventual statements, Michael's attempt to implicate me had backfired spectacularly. The prosecution painted a clear picture, a career fraudster who preyed on family trust, who'd planned his latest scam while still serving time for his last one. Mom and Dad sat in the front row, both looking somehow smaller than I remembered. They hadn't spoken to Michael since showing them the emails. 3 months of silence after 20 years of constant support. It was still strange to see them maintaining boundaries. The judge shuffled her papers, peering over her glasses at Michael. Before I pronounced sentence, would the defendant like to make a statement? Michael stood, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the old charm, the practiced sincerity that had fooled so many people for so long. Your Honor, he began, I stand before you today deeply remorseful. I've made mistakes, hurt people who trusted me, especially my family. I noticed Mom's shoulders tense. She'd heard this speech before, or versions of it, at every previous sentencing. But I've learned my lesson. With the court's mercy, I can make amends. Mr. Caldwell, the judge interrupted. I have here emails you wrote from prison, planning this scheme before you'd even completed your last sentence. Do you consider that learning your lesson? Michael faltered. Those emails were taken out of context. The context seems quite clear. She held up a printed page. You referred to your sister as the perfect mark, and your parents as useful tools for convincing her to help. Is that statement lacking context? The charm vanished. Michael's face hardened into something more familiar, the real person behind the mask. The defendant's prior convictions, the judge continued. combined with evidence of premeditation and the targeting of family members, leaves this court with little choice. Michael Caldwell, I hereby sentence you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. The gavel cracked. Mom stifled a sob. Dad just stared straight ahead, his back military straight. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered with cameras and microphones. I guided my parents through a side exit to my waiting car. 12 years, Mom whispered once we were driving. He'll be 47 when he gets out. If he gets out, Dad corrected. No parole in federal prison. We drove in silence through familiar streets, past the country club, where they'd once proudly introduced Michael as their entrepreneur son. Past the high school where he'd started his first scam, selling fake parking permits to freshmen. I pulled into their driveway, but neither moved to get out. We've listed the house, Dad said finally. Too many memories. Too much debt. I know. I'd helped them find a reliable real estate agent. The attorney thinks the sale proceeds should cover most of what Michael took. Amanda. Mom turned to face me. We'd never thanked you for stopping him, for showing us the truth, even when we didn't want to see it. You never have to thank me for that. Yes. Dad's voice was firm. We do. We spent 20 years thanking Michael for his lies. It's time we thanked you for the truth. I walked them inside, into the house that had witnessed so many family dramas. The living room where we'd had that last confrontation still held Michael's empty coffee cup, untouched since the night of his arrest. Mom picked it up, staring at the lipstick stain on the rim. I kept hoping, every time, that he'd really changed. I know, Mom. Your father and I, she set the cup down carefully. We've started therapy, learning about enablement, codependency, all the things we did wrong. You didn't do them wrong, I said softly. You did them out of love. It was Michael who did wrong with that love. Dad cleared his throat. We found a smaller place, near you in Summit, if that's okay. The question in his voice broke my heart a little. After everything, they were still worried about imposing, about assuming family connections. It's more than okay, I assured them. It's exactly what family should be. My phone buzzed. Diana updating me on Michael's processing into the federal system. No more minimum security country clubs. No more weekend furloughs. No more chances to plan his next scam. He'll try to contact you, I warned them. Letters, calls, probably through his lawyer first. We know, Dad nodded. The therapist helped us draft a no-contact letter. It's time. Mom touched the coffee cup one last time, then straightened her shoulders. Enough living in the past. Help me pack up this room. We spent the afternoon sorting through decades of family photos, creating two piles, the real memories and the ones Michael had tainted. Mom cried a little. Dad told old stories, and slowly, the weight of false loyalty lifted. That evening, driving home, I got one final text from Diana. Michael tried to list you as an approved visitor. I shut it down. I smiled, thinking about his words from those damning emails. Family help is her weakness. He was wrong. Family truth was my strength. And finally, our parents were strong enough to know the difference. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes family means choosing truth over comfort. And sometimes the hardest choices lead to the healthiest futures.